I built my empire while my family ignored my efforts. Now they wish they had supported me. My mother's nails dug into my forearm as she leaned in with her glassy smile, still plastered on, whispering, "Whatever you do, don't mention work tonight," like my jaw was a rash I should keep covered. The dining room was packed shoulder to shoulder with cousins and aunties and people I hadn't seen since I was a kid, and the whole house smelled like roast meat and perfume, and that sweet candle Mom lights whenever she wants things to feel nice. Someone had turned the heater on too high, so the air was thick and everyone's cheeks looked too pink. My dad was at the head of the table holding court, already halfway through his second glass of red, laughing loud enough that the cutlery trembled. He clinked his fork against his glass and said, all right, I've got a toast," and the room quieted in that practiced way families do when they know the patriarch is about to perform. I stood near the sideboard, trying to look busy, trying to look small, because I'd learned that if I take up too much space in my parents' house, someone will find a way to remind me I shouldn't. He raised his glass toward my cousin Natalie and her fiancé and started the usual speech. Family, love, new beginnings. Then he glanced at me like he couldn't help himself. And of course, he added, smiling like he was being generous, we're all proud of Nat for finding someone stable. Some people take a little longer to settle down. His eyes flicked to my left hand, bare then to my face. A few people chuckled. My brother, Noah, snorted into his drink. My mom squeezed my arm harder, a warning disguised as affection. I felt my stomach drop into my shoes and my face go hot, and for a second, I could actually hear my heartbeat, loud and stupid, like I was 15 again and being teased in front of relatives. Dad's smile widened, enjoying the attention, and he said, "Isn't that right, Em? Still doing your little projects?" Something in me snapped, not in a dramatic, screaming way, more like a thin elastic finally giving up after being stretched for years. I took a breath and opened my mouth to say something I would regret, something sharp, something ugly, but the front door swung open before any words came out. A woman in a tailor blazer stepped in with the cold night air behind her, followed by a guy in a suit carrying a branded gift bag. The woman's eyes scanned the room, landed on me, and she lit up in recognition like she'd found the only steady point in a crowd. "Emily," she said brightly, stepping around a coat rack like she belonged here. "I'm so sorry we're late. We got stuck on the M4. Happy engagement, everyone." People stared, confused. Mom's hand dropped from my arm. Dad's laugh faltered into silence. The woman walked straight to me anyway, ignoring the social hierarchy of my family like she didn't feel it, and held out her hand. "I'm Claire from Westbridge," she said, voice clear. "We've been emailing for weeks. It's so good to finally meet you in person. Your team has been incredible." The room went still in the way it does, right before a storm breaks. My cousin Natalie blinked like she thought this was some weird prank. Noah's eyebrows climbed. My dad's mouth opened and closed, like his brain was trying to reorganize the story fast enough to stay in control. Mom made a tiny sound that might have been a gasp or a cough. Claire turned slightly to include the room, still smiling. "Emily's the founder," she said casually, like she was introducing someone who baked good cupcakes. "She built the whole platform from scratch. We're investing because what she's done is, honestly, it's rare. She's changed how half the small vendors in Sydney do business." Then she looked at me again, warm and professional. "You didn't mention your family was this big. No wonder you're so good under pressure." My dad's glass hovered in midair. The toast died on his tongue. And all I could think was, "You told me not to mention work, Mum," like it was embarrassing. Yet here it is walking through the door anyway, saying my name like it matters. It was a Thursday night, 8 years ago, when I was sitting on the floor of my tiny rental with an overheating laptop on my knees, trying to make an invoice template in a free program because I couldn't afford the paid one. I remember the exact feeling in my fingers, cramped, cold from cheap takeaway aircon. And the way my phone kept lighting up with family group chat messages, I didn't have the energy to answer. Back then, I wasn't building an empire. I was just trying to survive the week without overdrafting my account. I'd quit a steady office job because it was squeezing the life out of me, and my dad had called it a tantrum dressed up as ambition. Mom had cried and asked why I couldn't just be normal. Noah had laughed and said, "So you're going to be one of those hustle people? Like it was a phase you grow out of?" I was 23 and tired of my bones. I wasn't chasing a dream for fun. I was chasing a way out of being the family's punchline, out of living paycheck to paycheck, out of feeling like my life was a series of apologies. I'd started helping a friend's small business after hours, just basic social media posts, inventory spreadsheets, replying to customers. I was good at it in a way that startled me. Not talented like an artist, not charming like a salesperson. Good like I could see the cracks in a system and patch them. Good like I could turn chaos into a plan. Then I noticed something else. The tiny businesses around me were bleeding money because they couldn't keep up with orders, stock, deliveries, customer messages, all scattered across different apps, notebooks, WhatsApp chats. Everyone was tired. Everyone was making mistakes. People weren't failing because they were lazy. They were failing because their systems were a mess. And I thought, quietly, dangerously, what if I could build something that made it easier? That's how it started. Not with some cinematic, I was destined for this moment. With me on the floor, building a clunky little tool that helped one business track orders without losing their mind. When I told my family, it went exactly how you'd expect if you've ever been the one who doesn't fit. Dad said, "So you're playing entrepreneur now?" Mom asked if I'd started looking for real jobs. Noah told people I was doing a weird online thing. My aunt asked if I was selling vitamins. Nobody asked what I was actually building. Nobody asked how hard it was. Nobody asked if I needed anything besides an emergency loan they could later use as leverage. There's a specific kind of loneliness that comes from building something while the people who are supposed to be your safety net treat you like you're embarrassing. I kept showing up to birthdays with my hands shaking from sleep deprivation. I smiled through comments like, "Still working on your little website?" and "At least you're keeping busy." I listened to Dad brag about Noah's promotion like it was a Nobel Prize while I quietly paid my own bills and pretended I wasn't terrified all the time. I learned to stop talking about it. It hurt less to keep my wins private than to hand them to my family, so they could minimize them. If I said I landed a new client, Mom would say, "That's nice, but don't get your hopes up." If I said I made enough to hire a part-time developer, Dad would say, "Careful, you'll get audited." If I said I was exhausted, Noah would say, "Maybe get a normal job then." So I built quietly. I built while my family had Christmas lunches and asked me to help with the dishes like my time didn't matter. I built while my dad told relatives I was still figuring things out. I built while Mom sent me listings for admin roles like she was doing me a favor. I built while Noah borrowed money off Mom and called me lucky for working from home. There were nights I almost quit. Nights I sat in the dark with my laptop open and my eyes burning, thinking I'm going to fail and everyone will be right. There were mornings I woke up with my chest tight, convinced my bank balance would be negative and my emails would be full of angry clients, and I'd have to crawl back to the life I'd left. But then a vendor would message me and say, "I didn't lose a single order this week," or "I finally slept," or "I can actually spend time with my kids," and something stubborn in me would flare back to life. The first real break wasn't glamorous. A mid-sized retailer agreed to pilot my platform. They paid on time. They gave feedback. They introduced me to someone else. I raised a tiny seed round. Nothing huge. Through a contact I met at a networking event I almost didn't attend because I didn't have the right shoes. I hired 2 people, a developer and a support rep. I moved from Emily's weird project to an actual company with a name, with a logo, with contracts. And still, my family didn't care. Or maybe they couldn't, because caring would mean admitting they'd been wrong. So I kept it separate. I learned to exist in 2 worlds. The world where investors call me impressive, and the world where my dad called me flighty. The world where clients trusted me with their operations, and the world where my mom asked if I needed help getting back on my feet. It wasn't until about a year ago that things started to really change. The platform scaled. Vendors told vendors. Bigger brands sign on. We expanded into logistics integrations, automated inventory, real-time analytics. I started flying to Melbourne for meetings. I started getting interviewed for industry podcasts. We hired more staff. We moved into an office with actual windows. I didn't tell my family, partly because I was protecting myself, partly because I didn't want to be loved differently just because I was useful. Then my cousin Natalie got engaged, and my mom called me with that careful voice she uses when she wants something. "We're having a dinner," she said. "Just family. Your dad wants to do a proper toast." There was a pause. "And your Uncle Mark mentioned you might be able to help with something." There it was. Not "we miss you." Not "we're proud." Help with something. What's something? I asked, already knowing. Mom sighed like I was being difficult. "It's nothing bad," she said quickly. "It's just, Natalie wants a big wedding, and you know how expensive everything is now. Your father's been talking to Mark about options." Another pause, softer. "You're doing well now, aren't you? We saw a thing. Online." My stomach tightened. "A thing. A business article," she admitted. "About your company. And, well, if you can contribute, it would mean a lot. Not to us. To Natalie." In my head, I saw the whole setup like a map. They'd ignored me until a headline made me real. Now they wanted to cash in on my reality while pretending they'd supported it all along. They were going to do it gently, with smiles, with family pressure, with "don't make it awkward." They were going to turn my success into a communal resource. I should have said no then. Instead, I said, "I'll come to the dinner," because I wanted to see it with my own eyes. Because I still, stupidly, hoped maybe it wouldn't be like that. Maybe it would be just dinner. Maybe my mom would just want me there. And for the first half hour, it almost was. There was food and chatter and Natalie showing off her ring. There were aunties talking about venues, uncles arguing about parking. My grandma asked me if I was eating enough. Noah made a joke about me being mysterious now because I didn't post much. I smiled. I stayed small. I let slide. Then Dad made the toast. Then he called my work little projects. And then Claire walked in. Claire wasn't supposed to be there. She was meant to drop off a gift bag in my office the next day, wine, a card, some fancy chocolates, because Westbridge was finalizing an investment. We'd been negotiating for weeks, and I'd been so stressed about it, I'd started grinding my teeth at night. Claire had insisted on meeting in person before signing. "I like to look founders in the eye," she'd said. "You can tell a lot." When she turned up at my parents' house, I wanted to sink through the floor. Not because I was ashamed, because I knew exactly what would happen next. My family would pivot so fast it would give them whiplash. They would want credit. They would want access. They would want proof that they were part of my story. Sure enough, the moment Claire said founder, my dad's face rearranged itself into something warmer. Something proud. Something performative. It was almost impressive how quickly he recovered. "Well," he boomed, standing a little too fast. "That's my girl." He laughed like he'd been joking all along. Always knew she had it in her. I felt something cold slide down my spine. Always knew, like he hadn't spent years calling me flaky. Mom's hands flew to her chest. "Oh my goodness," she breathed, eyes shining now, the way they shine when she thinks she can salvage an image. She looked at Claire like Claire was a celebrity. "We're so proud of Emily," she said, voice trembling with emotion that felt convenient. Noah leaned in toward me and whispered, "What the hell?" But his tone wasn't impressed. It was panicked, like he was suddenly realizing I wasn't under him in the family hierarchy anymore. Natalie's fiancé, who'd barely spoken to me before, suddenly smiled. "That's amazing," he said. "So what do you do exactly?" Like I hadn't been doing it for years. Like my value only became visible when a stranger validated it. Claire, to her credit, didn't play along with the family theater. She looked around, sensing the shift, and said politely, "It's really impressive what Emily's built. She's resilient." Her eyes met mine, and there was a flicker there. Something like, "Are you okay? Do you want to leave?" Dad clapped his hands together. "Well, we should all toast to that," he declared, trying to harness the moment. "To Emily, and to Natalie, and to family." Mom's fingers found my elbow again, softer now. "See," she whispered. "This is nice. Don't ruin it." And that was when I realized this wasn't my moment in their eyes. It was theirs. My success was a prop that could finally make them look good. Uncle Mark appeared like a shark that smelled blood. He'd been quiet all night, watching. Now he came over with that fake casual grin men like him use when they're about to ask for money. He said, leaning in like we were close, "Your mom mentioned you've been doing well. That's fantastic. Listen, we've been thinking. Maybe you could help Natalie with a bit of the wedding budget. Nothing crazy, just a little support. You know, as a gift. Natalie's eyes snapped to me, wide and hopeful. Mom's face did that pleading thing again. Dad's smile was tight, expectant. Noah's jaw clenched. The whole room seemed to tilt toward one question. Will you give? I looked at Natalie and felt a tug of guilt because she hadn't done anything to me personally. She just benefited from the family system the way everyone did. And I could already feel the trap. If I say no, I'm selfish. If I say yes, I'm the family bank forever. I didn't answer right away. I took a sip of water to buy time, and my hand was shaking slightly, annoying me. Claire stood quietly near the doorway, watching, not interfering. I have a question, I said finally, voice steady. Before we talk about money. Dad chuckled. Here we go, he muttered, like I was about to be difficult for fun. I ignored him and looked at Uncle Mark. You said as a gift, I said. Have you asked Noah for a gift? Or is this only coming to me because you think I have money? Noah's head jerked up. Mum flinched. Uncle Mark's smile slipped. Don't be like that. Mum whispered, panic creeping into her tone. It's not about. It is, I said calmly. My voice surprised me. It didn't sound angry. It sounded done. Dad's face hardened. Emily, he warned. I turned to him. Dad, I said, you just made a joke about my little projects. In front of everyone. Claire walked in and called me the founder, and suddenly you always knew I had it. I felt heat behind my eyes, but kept going. When I was sleeping on 2 hours a night building this, you told people I was playing entrepreneur. When I asked you to come to my first product demo, because it mattered to me, you said you were busy. When I said I couldn't come to Noah's last-minute birthday because I had a launch, you said I needed to get my priorities straight. The room froze. You could hear the fan buzzing in the kitchen. Someone's phone vibrated on the table, and it sounded like a bee trapped under glass. Mum's face went white. Not tonight, she whispered, voice shaking. Why not tonight? I asked quietly. Because there are witnesses? Natalie looked like she wanted to disappear. Noah stared at the table. Uncle Mark's mouth opened, then closed. Dad's nostrils flared. Claire cleared her throat softly, not stepping in, just present. A reminder that this was real. I took a breath, and my hand stopped shaking. It felt like my body finally realized I wasn't going to fold. I'm happy for Natalie, I said, looking at her. Truly. But I'm not going to be pressured into paying for a wedding because my success finally looks useful to everyone. I built my life without your support. And I'm not going to pretend you were there when you weren't. Dad slammed his glass down hard enough that wine sloshed. That's not fair, he snapped. We raised you. Mum's eyes filled with tears. Emily, please, she whispered, like she could beg me back into silence. You raised me to be convenient, I said, and my voice cracked slightly on the last word. Not supported. Convenient. Noah finally spoke, bitter. So this is what, your big moment? You're going to embarrass everyone now that you're important? I looked at him and felt that old sibling ache, the one where you want them to see you as equal. I'm not embarrassing you, I said. I'm telling the truth. You're uncomfortable because the truth doesn't match the story you like. Uncle Mark tried again because of course he did. No one's forcing you, he said, hands up in fake innocence. It was just a suggestion. Family helps family. Family doesn't mock you for years then hold out a hand when you win, I said. Dad stood up, towering, voice rising. You're acting like we were monsters. I shook my head slow. No, I said. You weren't monsters. You were worse. You were dismissive. You were embarrassed. You were passive. You were happy to let me struggle as long as I didn't make it your problem. That landed harder than yelling ever could, because it was specific, and it was true. Mum started crying properly then, shoulders shaking. I didn't know, she sobbed. I looked at her. You did, I said softly. You just didn't want to know, because knowing would mean you'd have to choose me over the version of family that's easiest. Claire spoke up then, gentle. Emily, she said, do you want to step outside for a moment? Not as an escape, but as an offer. A choice. My dad's eyes flashed. This is a family matter, he barked, offended that an outsider was witnessing his loss of control. Claire didn't flinch. With respect, she said calmly, Emily is my colleague, and she looks like she's been carrying this alone for a long time. I could have cried right there from how simple that felt. Not pity, just recognition. I nodded once. Yeah, I said. Duh. As I moved toward the door, Mum reached for me, fingers brushing my wrist. Don't go, she whispered, terrified, like my leaving would cement the story. I looked at her, and I didn't hate her. That was the strangest part. I just felt tired. I'll come back in, I said quietly, but not to be used. Outside, the night air hit my face like cold water. I stood on the front step, breathing, letting my heartbeat slow. Claire stood beside me, hands in her coat pockets, giving me space. I'm sorry, she said softly. I didn't mean to crash your dinner. Your assistant said you might be here, and I thought it might be nice to drop the gift personally. It's not your fault, I said, voice rough. You just accidentally pulled the curtain back. Claire nodded. Do you want me to leave? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to curl into myself and hide. Another part, newer, stronger, wanted to go back in and finish what I'd started without screaming, without apologizing for existing. No, I said, stay. It's good they see I'm not alone. When we went back inside, the room was quieter. People were pretending to focus on dessert, but you could feel the tension clinging to the walls. Dad sat rigidly at the head of the table, jaw clenched. Mum dabbed at her cheeks, trying to regain control. Natalie looked pale. Noah wouldn't meet my eyes. Uncle Mark cleared his throat, trying to steer the moment back to normal. So, he said too loudly, Claire, was it? What exactly does your firm do? Claire smiled politely. We invest in companies, she said. We provide capital and strategic support. Dad's posture changed instantly, like someone had pulled a string. He leaned forward, smile returning. New target acquired. Ah, he said warmly. Investment. That's fantastic. Emily always had such drive. My stomach flipped. The pivot. The performance. I could almost see the gears. If he can impress Claire, he can regain status. Claire glanced at me briefly, then back at my dad, still polite, but not fooled. Drive helps, she said. But what Emily has is discipline and clarity. She didn't get here because someone handed it to her. Mum flinched again. Dad's smile twitched. Uncle Mark tried one last time, quieter, leaning toward me like we were still allies. Maybe, he murmured, you could still do something small for Natalie, just to keep peace. I turned my head and looked at him properly. Peace bought with my silence isn't peace, I said. It's just you being comfortable. He sat back, annoyed like I'd failed a test. I looked at Natalie then, because she deserved a direct conversation. Nat, I said gently, I love you. I'm happy for you. I'll give you a gift like everyone else. A normal gift, not a budget, not a bailout. If that disappoints you, I'm sorry, but I'm not buying my place in this family. Natalie swallowed hard. Her eyes flicked to Mum, to Dad, to Uncle Mark. Then she nodded tiny. Okay, she whispered. I didn't know. That was the closest to accountability I was going to get tonight. After dinner, Mum cornered me in the kitchen while everyone was putting on coats. The sink was full of plates, the dishwasher door open like a mouth. She held my arm again, gentler now, voice low. Why didn't you tell us? She asked, tears threatening again. Why didn't you let us be proud of you? I laughed once, tired, not mean. Because you weren't proud, I said. You were worried. You were embarrassed. You wanted me to be quieter. And now you want to be proud because it looks good. Mum's mouth trembled. That's not. It is, I said softly. And I'm not saying you're evil. I'm saying you don't get to rewrite it. Her shoulders sagged. Your father didn't mean it, she whispered. He did, I said. He meant it every time. Mum nodded slowly like her brain was trying to accept a fact she'd spent years smoothing over. What do you want from us? She asked small. I stared at the dishwater, the bubbles popping quietly, and felt the weird grief of wanting something that should be simple. I want you to stop treating my life like a resource, I said. I want you to stop joking at my expense. I want you to ask me about my work because you care, not because it might benefit you. And I want you to accept that I can say no without it meaning I don't love you. Mum cried silently then, wiping tears with the back of her hand. I don't know how to fix this, she whispered. You start by not asking me for money, I said, and by not punishing me when I don't give. Dad, didn't speak to me on the way out. He hugged Natalie and her fiancé like nothing happened, shook hands, acted like the night had gone exactly how he wanted. But his eyes avoided mine, and I knew he was furious, not because I'd lied, because I'd told the truth in front of someone he couldn't control. Noah texted me later. Congrats on being the main character. Then, Mom's a mess. Then, hope it was worth it. I stared at the messages until my eyes blurred. Then I put my phone face down and went for a walk around my block because I could feel panic rising in my chest. Here's the part people always want when they hear stories like this. The clean ending where the family apologizes, sees the light, changes. That hasn't happened. Not fully. What has happened is smaller and messy. Mom has started calling less. When she does, she asks, "How are you?" And sometimes she actually waits for an answer instead of jumping into family needs. Dad is icy in group settings, then tries to act warm around outsiders. Noah swings between sarcasm and weird admiration he won't admit. Uncle Mark hasn't spoken to me since. Natalie sent me a message a week later saying, "I'm sorry they did that. I didn't know about the money stuff. I just wanted you there." I cried when I read it, not because it fixed everything, but because it was the first time someone in my family said sorry, without adding, "But Claire's firm invested. The deal closed. We're scaling again." I should feel like I won, but mostly I feel settled. Like I finally stopped auditioning for my family's approval and started living in my own reality. And yeah, now they wish they'd supported me. Not always out loud. Sometimes it shows up in little, clumsy ways. Mom forwarded me an article about my industry with a "saw this and thought of you" text. Dad telling a neighbor, too loudly, "My daughter runs a company," as if he's been there from day one. Noah asking, casually, "So how's your little project?" Then correcting himself quickly when he sees my face. But I'm not interested in making them feel bad forever. I'm interested in not being used. Because the empire I built wasn't just a company. It was boundaries. It was self-respect. It was the ability to stand in a room full of people who benefit from me being small and refuse to shrink anyway. It was learning that being loved conditionally isn't love you should chase. It was learning to let people be disappointed in me without trying to buy their comfort. Sometimes I still get that ache, the little kid part of me that wants my dad to say, genuinely, "I'm proud of you," without a joke attached. The part of me that wants my mom to defend me instead of the family image. The part of me that wants Noah to see me as a person, not a rival. But the older part of me, the one who built all this while being ignored, knows something I didn't know back then. Support from people who only show up when you're successful isn't support. It's attendance. And I don't need an audience anymore. I needed a family. If they want to become one now, they can start where they should have started years ago. With respect, with curiosity, with a love that doesn't come with a handout.